In April 2003, Aron Ralston left his home in Aspen, Colorado and drove 5 hours to the Canyonlands of Moeb, Utah. It was here where his relatively casual day of hiking turned into a devastating fight for survival when a dislodged boulder fell and crushed his arm, trapping him in one of the hundreds of narrow passageways of BlueJohn Canyon. He was all alone, and worse still, no one even knew he was there. If he was going to make it out alive, he'd have to do the unthinkable, cut off his own arm. Aron's harrowing ordeal has been well documented, most notably in his memoir, the aptly titled Between a Rock and a Hard Place. 7 years after Aron was forced to sever his own arm in a final, desperate attempt at survival, Danny Boyle adapted his inspiring story for the big screen in 127 hours. But does the movie accurately portray Aron's inspiring tale of perseverance, or does it get lost in the canyons of Hollywood fiction? Let's find out what the really happened in 127 hours. The film opens with 27-year-old outdoor enthusiast Aron Ralston, played by James Franco in an Oscar-nominated performance, racing out of his house in a hurry, gathering his supplies for a day of intense hiking. A couple of burritos, a gallon of water, a multi-purpose tool, climbing gear, and a camcorder. He packs his bag, throws his bike in the back of his truck, and begins a 5-hour trek to Canyonlands National Park. He arrives that night and sleeps in his car, starting early the next morning with a 20-mile mountain bike ride through desolate landscape. It's the first time we see Aron really in his element. He's charismatic, carefree, and energised by the more extreme aspects of life. When Aron arrives at BlueJohn Canyon, he changes his bike to a downed tree. Funny enough, this is the film's first inaccuracy. The bike was chained to itself rather than the felled tree. After some solitary hiking through the breathtaking Utah landscape, Aron comes across a pair of lost female hikers, Christy, played by Kate Mara, and Megan, played by Amber Tamlin. He helps them find their way to the dome, demonstrating his intricate knowledge of the region, and offers to show them a really cool underground oasis. They find Aron a little odd at first, but his charisma shines through, and they get to know him a little better, learning that he's actually a mechanical engineer by trade. This is true, as Aron worked at Intel for a few years before quitting to pursue climbing full time. Aron and the women have found some fun and share a few laughs. The girls even invite him to a party later that night.
Well, will I ever see you again?
That depends. Do you party?
Aron gives him a tentative maybe and continues on his solo journey. This scene, according to the real-life Aron Ralston, is mostly fictionalised. While he did meet a pair of female hikers, he didn't take them to an underground pool. All he did was show them a few different climbing manoeuvres before returning to his hike. It's not long before trouble rears its ugly head. While navigating an uneven passage, Aron steps on a loose boulder and falls into a narrow chasm. Before he can even react to what's happened, the rock comes down on him, crushing his arm against the wall and trapping him in the claustrophobic canyon. According to Ralston, this scene, especially Franco's reaction to the horrifying event, is incredibly accurate. Aron described getting trapped in that canyon to being trapped at the bottom of a well. Aron immediately tries to free his arm by pushing on the rock, trying to knock it out of place. When that goes nowhere, he takes out his multi-purpose tool and uses its small, blunt knife to chip away at the boulder. After hours of aimless shivving, working well through the night, it becomes apparent to Aron that there is no way this is going to work. In an effort to get some sleep, Aron uses some climbing ropes to hook himself up to another rock so that he could hang and give his legs some rest. He covers his head and attempts to get some sleep, but it doesn't come easily as flashbacks to his childhood with his dad keep him awake. While this was probably added to build character and provide insight, the hallucinations that will eventually come were, according to Aron, very real. The next day, Aron takes out his camera for his first video diary, where he describes his situation and informs any potential viewers of his name and other important information in the event that this canyon passage becomes his final resting place. While recording, he thinks he can hear someone traversing above. Aron shouts out for help, "Hello!" But he quickly realises that it's just a raven. He re-watches the video and sees how quickly he was overtaken by panic. He reminds himself to stay cool and keep a level head, as freaking out would almost certainly result in death. These video diaries play a large role in Aron's story and was the one thing that helped him maintain his sanity during the entire ordeal. These diaries are very real. Some have even been released for public viewing to help promote his book and this movie, but there were a number of more personal entries that he refused to release into the world. But in preparation for this movie, Aron provided Franco and Danny Boyle access to the tape so that they could paint a more accurate portrayal of his personality and struggles on screen. Many of the monologues in the film come directly from Aron's videos. After nearly 2 days of being trapped, Aron is running out of food, which amounts to 1 ration burrito and a few candy bar crumbs. Even worse, his water reserves have dipped below 1/4 of a litre at this point. With starvation and dehydration comes hallucinations, which over the course of the 5.5 days become more vivid and frequent. Aron had visions of his family and friends looking back on his most cherished memories. Some not so cherished flashbacks come rushing back, including his breakup with ex-girlfriend Rana, who broke up with him because of his selfish loner ways. But no matter how bad these hallucinations became, it kept Aron alive, as it was his escape from the hell he'd found himself in. But Aron isn't giving up just yet. He fashions a pulley system out of his climbing ropes in an effort to lift the boulder off his arm, but his lack of strength, low friction, and the inherent stretchiness of the climbing ropes make moving this rock all but impossible. Famished, Aron tries to take a sip from his canteen but accidentally spills most of his remaining water in the process. With the dwindling supply of H2O, Aron figures that his best chance at survival is to drink his own urine, so he fills his empty camelback with his pee, works up the courage and takes a sip. Unsurprisingly, Aron actually did this, though some doctors would advise against drinking your own urine in a survival predicament due to its high salt content. Ralston felt like it was literally a matter of life or death, so he bit the bullet and drank it. He actually set up his schedule, drinking every 3 hours to stay hydrated. Another day passes. As Aron suffers from the harsh cold weather of the desert night, battling hypothermia, he imagines the horrors of a very real possibility, the chance that a rainstorm could ignite a flash flood that would drown him in the canyon. This terrifying prospect comes to life in the form of a vivid dream. Cascading water floods the canyon, submerging Aron under its weight, but it also knocks the boulder out of the canyon and frees him. Aron rides a torrent out of the passageway and into the desert. He locates a nearby ranger's office and stumbles over, only to be confronted by a hallucination of his ex-girlfriend. He's jolted awake by a loud clap of thunder and brought back to his cruel reality. While this was a dream and exaggerated for Hollywood purposes, the likelihood of drowning in a flash flood like this was actually a grave concern. And even though Aron doesn't mention having this particular nightmare in his book, he does write about the various psychedelic dream trips he did experience, which include being carried through a blood vessel and flying over the Pacific Ocean and turning into a photon shower in a vacuum of space. On his 4th day trapped in the canyon, Aron receives another visit from the raven that flies over him at exactly 8:15 every day, which is actually true. He takes out his camcorder to record another video diary. It's at this point that it dawns on him that he didn't tell anyone where he was going, so even if they knew he was missing, they wouldn't even know where to look. This crushing realization compels him to say goodbye to his loved ones in an emotional confession to the camera, fully believing that he was going to die.
My name's Aron Ralston. My parents are down on Larry Ralston of Englewood, Colorado. Whoever finds this, please make an attempt to get it to them.
Aron even scratches his epitaph onto the rock wall beside him with his trusty knife. In a fit of rage, or perhaps disregard, Aron stabs himself in the arm. To his surprise, it hardly bleeds, mostly because his arm is practically dead, a byproduct of what is called compartment syndrome, where the nerves and muscles are pinched so hard they essentially die. If Ralston was holding on to any hope of survival at all, it was destroyed now. While the blade could cut through his flesh, it was too dull to cut through his bone. There was no escape. While this would be cause for panic and fear in many, Aron details in his book that this revelation actually put his mind at ease. There was no fighting it, nothing I could do but wait out until the end. After 5 days of torment, Ralston had what could only be described as an epiphany. In the middle of his final night in the canyon, he has a vision of a small boy which he comes to realise is actually his future child. Aron sees himself playing with his son with one arm, and this glimpse into the future revitalises him and his desire to break free of the prison he's found himself in. Unsurprisingly, this is all true. I see myself in this out-of-body experience playing with him with a handless right arm. I see myself scoop him up, and there's this look in his eyes. Daddy, can we play now? That look tells me this is my son. This is in the future. I'm gonna have this experience someday. Now it's like, I'm gonna get through this night. The next morning, Aron knew what he had to do. Using his weight and position against the rock, Aron snaps the 2 bones being crushed by the boulder by his radius and ulnar bones. Aron doesn't have to worry about trying to saw through them with his inefficient knife. What follows is certainly hard to watch, but perhaps surprisingly, Aron is smiling through the pain, and of course, this is totally true. As a matter of fact, the real Ralston considered that moment euphoric, as he finally discovered a way to rid himself of the one thing holding him back, his own arm. With his bones now broken, Aron proceeds to cut through his arm's flesh, severing nerves and muscles. It is nothing short of excruciating, and Boyle does a masterful job portraying the pain both visually and audibly. Although the scene only lasts a couple minutes, the actual amputation took over an hour. Aron rode the high of that euphoric feeling to fight through the pain, even blacking out a few times along the way before resuming the brutal task. But according to Aron, the film was an incredibly truthful representation of what took place. Even doctors who had watched the scene gave it high notes for accuracy. With his appendage now severed, Ralston wraps his bloody stump to stop it from bleeding out. He takes a picture of the boulder, which he actually did, and locates some climbing hooks hammered into the canyon wall by a previous climber. He hooks himself in and miraculously lifts himself out of the canyon passage with only one arm. Of course, Aron did all of this. After he stumbles out of the canyon passage, he locates a brown puddle of rain runoff. He immediately drops to his knees and drinks as much as his body can tolerate. He washes his face, his head, and relishes in the moment. He quickly grabs the bare necessities, leaving much of his belongings behind, and begins his long journey ahead. In the film, he eventually comes across a family of American hikers who come to his aid. They give him more water and some food. Quickly others come to his help, and soon he's surrounded by a small group of hikers. Before long, a helicopter touches down and Aron is officially rescued. While this sequence of events accurately depicts how Aron was rescued, there were a few minor changes. The hikers were actually Dutch, not American, and they provided Aron with water and 2 Oreos, since they ate the rest. And the helicopter that touched down to rescue him was actually called in by Aron's mother, who he thanks for saving his life. While the rescue effort isn't covered in the movie, Aron's memoir goes into great detail the lengths his family went to, especially his mother, to make sure he came home alive. So there you have it, the true story behind 127 Hours. Remarkably, director Danny Boyle captured Aron's inspiring and life-affirming self-rescue and brutal honesty down to the smallest details. The film was shot in the exact place that Aron was trapped, and he even used the very same camcorder that he depended on when trapped in the canyon. Ralston has gone on to say this about the film: "The movie is so factually accurate as it is as close to a documentary as you can get and still be a drama. I think it's the best film ever made." So, don't take our word for it, take Aron's. 127 Hours is more fact than fiction.